What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast with Justin and Brandon. It may have only been 2 weeks, but it feels like we have gone forever without predicting a race. But it is time to predict the 2025 Belgian Grand Prix. Formula One is back. Sprint racing is back. Brandon, how you feeling?
I am so excited to finally have race week upon us again. And not only is it race week, but it is sprint race week, which is even more exciting. So we've got a lot to look forward to.
Well, maybe less exciting because it's a sprint race at Spa, and I've gone on my Spa sprint race rant before because the track's too dang long, and we're going to see like 10 laps of action. But as you said before we started recording, maybe we'll get one nice lap of racing, maybe a little overtake down the Kimmel Straight. Who knows? I don't think it'll be the best sprint race, but it's cars on track, so I really can't complain.
That's true. We can never complain when cars are on track.
Yeah, but I can at least ask for us to pick better sprint tracks if we're going to do sprint races on 6 random weekends. Whatever. That is what it is. That's just the way that it goes. It is currently 29-29. We're all tied up. 12 races in the books, 12 to go. I have clawed my way back all season long, and I cannot wait to take the lead this weekend after our Belgian Grand Prix predictions. Driver of the weekend for the Belgian Grand Prix, I have gone with George Russell. I'm thinking back to last year where George Russell won this race on track and obviously lost it about an hour and a half after the race ended because his car was too light, probably because of the length of Spa, no parc fermé, the whole dang thing. But anyways, George Russell, over this break, there has been so much conversation about if he's going to lose his seat to Max Verstappen, and he probably would if Max goes to Mercedes. But that's unbelievable because he's been having one of the best seasons of his career, if not the best season of his career. I think George Russell comes back from this mini break with his seat on fire, literally and figuratively, and has an amazing weekend here in Spa.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. For my driver of the weekend, I've gone with Kimi Antonelli just because maybe this is just last year ingrained in my mind right now when I'm thinking about Spa, but the Mercedes was very good at this track last year. They did not have a bad weekend a couple weekends ago in Silverstone. So I think that the Mercedes are going to do well, and Kimi might have a good weekend. There's more opportunities for him to score points, so it's all on the table.
Yeah, last sprint weekend, Kimi Antonelli took sprint pole, so maybe he's a sprint weekend expert. This is another one of those tracks that he would have raced in junior formulas, so I think that's an excellent choice. Backmarker of the weekend, I've gone with Nico Hülkenberg. This is nothing against Nico Hülkenberg because the last thing we saw of him was him standing on the podium, but over this break, that has just snowballed into this momentum of Audi's winning the championship next year. Nico Hülkenberg is the greatest driver of all time. Can't wait for him to get a win. So I don't even think he's gonna have a horrible weekend. I just think there's all this hype and momentum behind Nico Hülkenberg, and that Sauber, yes, it's better, but it's still not a great car. Spa is one of those tracks that I could see it struggling at a little bit with having to find the balance between high speed first and third sectors, very technical second sector. So I don't think he'll be able to live up to the hype this weekend. I put him as my back marker.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick, and I think a lot of the back marker cars will struggle this weekend when like Williams. You look at that car; they've got a track that suits them very well, and then they have other tracks that don't. So I think a lot of cars might struggle this weekend. One of those cars being Haas, which is why I have chosen Ollie Bearman as my back mark of the weekend. Nothing against Ollie personally. I think he's a nice kid and a great driver. Again, for kind of the reasons that I just mentioned, I don't think Haas is going to be very strong because it is a really technical track, and it is a track that requires a very, I think, kind of like a knife edge balance setup, that if you go too much to one way or the other, your car is really going to perform pretty poorly here. So I think Ollie's not going to have a good weekend.
Yeah, a Haas backmarker prediction is always in the cards because who knows when they're randomly going to rock up on a race weekend and not even be able to make it out of Q1. So can't fault you for that prediction either. Sprint pole, I've gone with Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris has had the momentum recently, but Oscar Piastri is still the championship leader. I expect him to come out guns blazing after this break, reclaim some of that championship momentum, take sprint pole, first chance he has this weekend.
Speaking of reclaiming championship momentum, I felt like I really had to go bold here to reclaim the momentum in our predictions championship, which is why I predicted Charles Leclerc to get sprint pole. The Ferrari has looked like it's trending in the right direction. Charles is a fantastic qualifier. We've seen it many times in his career. So I don't see any reason why he couldn't get sprint pole this weekend.
Yeah, you said championship momentum, and I knew who you had written on the sheet. I said, there is no way he's about to say this. Glad you brought it back to our personal championship here, because unfortunately, Charles Leclerc and Ferrari have no championship momentum this year. Sprint winner predictions. I've gone with Oscar Piastri. I think he wins this sprint race from pole. Hard for me to predict against Oscar still. Hard for me to predict against the McLaren. Some of the other teams may be catching up, but I do think that McLaren is still the fastest car in the grid. I think Oscar Piastri will win the sprint race this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think while Charles may get pole in sprint, I do not think that Ferrari has anywhere near the race pace that the McLaren has. So I think Oscar is going to overtake Charles for the lead and win the sprint as well. I'm expecting a bit of a bounce back from Oscar as well. He's got some time to reset. And he again did not have a bad weekend in Silverstone. The penalty really kind of hurt him in that race. But it was a great weekend from him overall. So it's not like Oscar is massively struggling right now. He's still performing very well. So
with how tight the championship margins are this year, these sprint races and these sprint wins could be even more important than we've seen in the past, with the gap between the two leading drivers being less than a sprint win right now. Every point counts. Glad we agree Oscar Piastri is going to win, even though it doesn't really do anything for our championship fight. Pole predictions. I've gone with George Russell. Predicted him to be my driver of the weekend, so I've got to back him to at least perform in at least one competitive session. George is still one of the best qualifiers on the grid. They didn't call him Mr. Saturday for nothing. I think, you can never count out a George Russell pole, especially like you said. Mercedes performed well here last year. Maybe they've got some more pace in them at this point this year. So I'm going with George Russell on pole.
I think it's a great pick. I'm going with Lando Norris for pole. Just because I think it's kind of going to be a back and forth weekend between Lando and Oscar. And I think after missing out on sprint pole, Lando will be eager to secure pole for the Grand Prix and maybe get some, I don't know, good data from sprint qualifying. So you can fine tune the setup. But yeah, I think Lando's my pick for pole.
Hey, last year, Spa was one of Lando's worst weekends. If we remember that, he kind of bottled
True.
it off the line, finished behind Oscar. That was kind of one of the first few nails in the coffin to him losing that championship fight to Max Verstappen. So at this point, I have steered clear of Lando Norris, but I am going to put him in third place. P3, I have gone with Lando Norris. I think Lando Norris will finish in third place this weekend. Might be a little bit down on him compared to his teammate, but still, he's an incredibly talented driver. He does have that momentum, and Lando Norris is a very momentum-based driver. I think it would be foolish to leave him off of the podium, so I'm putting him in P3.
I am putting George Russell in P3. I do expect George and Mercedes to have a good weekend. So I think a podium would be a great finish, great result for him and the team, especially when he is, for some reason, fighting to keep his seat at Mercedes, which is a crazy thing to say. But yeah.
Fighting to keep his seat at Mercedes. I'm sure he'd land somewhere else in the sport. This probably isn't the last we've seen of George Russell. I agree that a podium would be a great result because I have put George Russell in second place. George Russell is my P2 prediction this weekend. As I said, I think he's going to get pole, but just like you mentioned, talking about Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri in the sprint race, I don't think any team right now has the pace to keep up with that McLaren on race day. I think George Russell, unfortunately, won't be able to hold on to that P1 and will fall back to P2, but that would still be an incredibly solid result for them this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've gone with Oscar Piastri for P2 on my podium here. Like I said before, I think it's going to be a back and forth weekend between Oscar and Lando. After winning the sprint race, I think Oscar will miss out on pole. And if Lando gets pole, I don't think he's going to let Oscar past. We have seen him do it before, but, I don't think so. Not at this point in the championship, not at this point in the season. So I think Oscar will be P2.
Yeah, it's a bold statement from what we've seen Lando Norris do in the past from pole position, but he has won his last 4 poles, which people don't like to talk about. They only like to talk about the bottle, but he's on quite a pole to win streak right now. P1, I have gone with Oscar Piastri. I think Oscar Piastri is going to win the Belgian Grand Prix. It's just one of those drivers who I think is going to come out this weekend and just almost be flawless. I think he's going to have an incredible weekend. I think he's going to look competitive from the jump. I think he's going to have the upper hand on Lando Norris all weekend long, extend his championship lead, swing some of that momentum back in his favor. Oscar Piastri will win the Belgian Grand Prix this year.
And I think Lando Norris is going to win the Belgian Grand Prix this year. The more I read out my predictions out loud, the more I realize I'm putting them all kind of in the Lando Norris basket. But you know what? Like you said, he's on quite the pull to win streak, and I am backing Lando to continue that streak, extend that streak, and win this weekend in Belgium.
Yeah, this is just one of those weekends where we've already made so many predictions through this podcast that this could be a crazy swing in our predictions championship. I'm getting nervous. We've gone in completely different directions. One of us could leave this weekend with like a 5-point lead after we spent all this time coming back together to get tied. It could be insane. Our one pushing prediction, I have predicted that someone gets stuck in the gravel over the course of the weekend. Spa is one of those beautiful, glorious, old school tracks that actually punishes drivers for going off. Too many tracks these days just have an absurd amount of asphalt runoff, and you can go 70 meters past your braking point and you're fine. Nothing happens. Not this weekend. You put a toe offline and you'll find yourself spinning in some gravel. I think someone gets stuck in that gravel this weekend, and that is my one pushing prediction.
I think that's a fantastic prediction. Spa definitely punishes drivers pretty harshly. My one pushing prediction, I think that the order of the top 5 in the sprint is going to be completely different than the top 5 of the race, meaning that no driver earns the same top 5 qualification at the finish of the sprint and the finish of the race, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I feel like it's kind of complicated.
I got it. No, I'm tracking you. I got you. That makes total sense. George Russell finishes 4th in the sprint, can't finish 4th in the race in order for your prediction to come true. No driver finishes same position. I got you. I'm following you. I think that's a great prediction. Very unique, something we've never done before. So props to you. I think that is a fantastic prediction.
Thank you. Hopefully it comes true. We'll see.
I hope it doesn't for the sake of this. I think I just say that it's a great prediction, doesn't come true. You've almost guaranteed that one driver will finish in the exact same position. The other 4 will be different. That's just would be classic Podium Pushers prediction. The fans at xgaslight, 2 DNFs in Hamilton's first Ferrari podium. At #1260, Max takes pole and Oscar wins the race. And at Nickelodeon ____ Colapinto podium after 10 plus DNFs in the race. A lot of crazy predictions there. A lot of 2-1 predictions. That's some insane stuff. Colapinto finished on the podium. I mean, we pack up shop. There's nothing left for us to predict in this podcast. Formula One's just too crazy. But those are some great predictions.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely just had to throw that Colapinto podium one in there. Too crazy not to include in the podcast. So
yeah, too crazy not to include. As always, thank you guys for submitting your predictions. If you want to be a part of future reaction and prediction podcasts, be sure to follow us on all our social medias. Before we get out of here, because this is obviously all we've got to predict this weekend, Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts?
You probably guessed it, but I'm excited for Spa. Spa is a great track. We've had a lot of great racing here in the past. We saw a fantastic race here last year, and I am excited for more. I think as we get to the end of the 2025 regulations, the cars are, converging, and we're going to see a lot of good racing this weekend.
Yeah, I may complain that Spa isn't the best track for a sprint race, but I will never complain about more competitive Formula One sessions. So I too am excited for the Belgian Grand Prix. As always, thank you for watching and listening to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast. It means the world that you let us talk to you about Formula One. Before you go, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all of the things. We will see you next week to react to the Belgian Grand Prix. But until then, have a great day and God bless.
See ya.